Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rajan Mahendra. I am the founder of Arogya Ahar. Welcome you all to today's live session sponsored by Arogya Ahar and Ayurveda in regard to nutrition. Hi Aditi. For thyroid disorders. This is a talk in continuation with our series of talks on nutrition and Ayurvedic methodologies for treatment of lifestyle disorders. Hi Feroz. My aim today is to simplify complex biological processes that happen in our body in lay terms so that people are able to become aware of their health issues, be able to clinically look at their parameters, be able to have an informed discussion with their care providers so that they have the right approach to managing their lifestyle diseases, preventing their lifestyle disorders, or even reversing their lifestyle conditions. So, this is the objective of today's talk, and today's topic we are going to cover thyroid disorders. Hi Pankaj. Thyroid is the most complex system in our body, but unfortunately thyroid disorders are looked at only from one parameter, which is TSH, and it's diagnosed and treated on that basis. Hi Pankaj. Which in my view is not doing justice to the problem at all. In fact, not managing it the right way. I'll explain to you why in just a little bit. So as I said, thyroid is the most complex system in our body, and we need to look at it from a very, very larger picture, because every single cell in our body depends on the thyroid hormone for metabolism. That means our cells cannot function, cannot create energy, cannot burn nutrients and convert that into energy without the thyroid hormone. So the thyroid hormone plays such an important role. So we need to look at it from a very holistic perspective. But before I get into the details of thyroid disorders, let me explain to you some statistics about how many people are suffering from thyroid disorders in India. There are more than 11% of our population as of 2017 data that is available who are suffering from thyroid disorders, which is just next to our diabetes. And thyroid and diabetes are comorbidities that exist together to cause further other morbidities like heart disease, menstrual problems, then low calcium, high cholesterol, and so on. So in that sense, thyroid plays a very critical role. So coming back to statistics, 11% people are having thyroid disorders in our country, out of which 79% are women and 21% are men. Very interestingly, only 1% people have what is called as hyperthyroid, or where there is a overactive thyroid condition. About 3% people have goiter, which means they are suffering from lack of iodine in their body. 0.3% of thyroid patients are having thyroid cancer, and rest of the people are what we call as hypothyroid, where the thyroid is underactive. That means it is not performing in a proper manner. Looking at the population profile, about 15% people who have thyroid disorders are below 18 years of age. 40% people are between 18 and 35 years. 25% people are between 36 and 45, and 20% people are greater than 45 years. So, this is the profile of people who have thyroid disorders, and majorly they are women. Also, they are mostly hypothyroid patients. Welcome, Subbarao garu. So, let us now dive into how the thyroid functions. What is it that we look at in terms of thyroid? So, thyroid is a gland which is a butterfly shaped in the neck region here, and it receives stimulation from the pituitary gland, which is just below the brain, which in turn receives the signal from hypothalamus in the brain. So, these axes, the hypothalamus, pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline axis, plays the most important role in our endocrine function by producing various hormones. The most important hormone is the thyroid hormone. Now, thyroid hormone is nothing but iodination of a amino acid called tyrosine. We have 17-18 amino acids. Some of them are essential, which means we have to take it from the diet. Some of them are non-essential, which means the body will produce it on its own. So, tyrosine is a amino acid that the body produces by itself, and it takes iodine, combines the tyrosine and iodine to create what is called as triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine, which is 3 molecules of tyrosine with iodine, 3 molecules of iodine, tyrosine with 4 molecules of iodine. So, this is what is called as the thyroid hormone. Now, in order to make this happen, there is a very important enzyme that works, that is called thyroid peroxidase. This enzyme is very critical for making the thyroid hormone T4 and T3. Along with thyroid peroxidase, we need several nutrients that are important in the process of converting tyrosine to the thyroid hormone. What are these nutrients? Selenium, zinc are 2 major important nutrients that are required for producing the thyroid hormone. Once the thyroid hormone is produced, the majority of the percentage of thyroid hormone is T4 and T3 is only 10%. But the active form of thyroid hormone, what is required for the cells to use in metabolism, is T3. That means this T4 that the thyroid produces have to get converted to T3. Now, this process of conversion happens about 60% in liver, about 20% in the gut, and balance in the peripheral tissues, mainly the cells. Once the T4 is converted to T3, welcome Rajgopal garu, the T3 then gets absorbed in different cells. In fact, all the cells of the human body require T3, so they have receptors to absorb these T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone. Now, there can be problems at the hormone production stage, there can be problem at thyroid conversion stage from T4 to T3 in the liver or in the gut or in the peripheral organs, or there can be a problem with the receptors because some toxic elements are blocking the receptors from absorbing the T3, or there could be reverse T3, which is a hormone that works against T3, and this reverse T3 is made by the adrenaline gland, which is situated just above the kidneys. So, to understand thyroid, like I said, is not so simple. It is a very complicated process of multiple organs and almost all the cells getting involved in metabolism of the thyroid hormone, and therefore, it is such an important aspect. And I said in the beginning, there are more than 12-15% people having thyroid issues and comorbidities. That's what makes it dangerous. Now, look at what hyperthyroidism means. Hyperthyroidism is a condition where the thyroid hormone is produced excessively. Hypothyroidism is a condition where the thyroid hormone production is low. In case of hyperthyroidism, good evening Krishna. In case of hyperthyroidism, the body is lean, the person may lose weight, he may be very rapidly metabolizing stuff, so he may feel hungry too often, he may have to eat more often, and this is primarily because there is excess production of thyroid hormone, which we need to reduce the iodine intake of the patient. Good evening Funny. Coming to hypothyroidism, hypothyroidism is a condition where the body is not producing enough thyroid hormone, therefore the body is unable to metabolize, and therefore it becomes fatigued, lethargic, tired, obese and sensitive to cold. That means you get body temperature lower than normal. So, a very simple technique to know whether you have hypothyroidism is to check your body temperature on waking up in the morning from bed, and if it is below 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 or 4 consecutive days on an average, then you can be expected to have hypothyroidism. So, you will have susceptibility to cold, you will have obesity and you will have low metabolism. Now, coming to why, like I said, it is not a gender disorder, it is not a woman related disorder, but more and more people have hypothyroidism, and more people who are hypothyroid are women. Almost 70% people are women and only 30% people are men. There is also a psychological aspect to this. Remember, the brain is controlling the thyroid response to lack of sufficient thyroid hormone in the blood or availability of thyroid hormone in the cells by creating a action from hypothalamus and pituitary, which means our psychology will impact our thyroid gland functioning. So, typically people who feel they are stifled, people who are in rage or anger for feeling left out are the people who get impacted in regard to their thyroid functioning, and the thyroid becomes either hyperactive or hypoactive. In case of hypoactive, they feel stifled. In case of hyperactive, they feel raged. Either way, they are missing out in the social interactions and they feel lonely, lethargic, fatigued, tired, obese and so on. Now, as I said, the problem is identified by only a measurement called TSH, which is called thyroid stimulating hormone. This is a hormone produced by the pituitary. So, when we go to a doctor, we check for thyroid hormone, then they check for TSH. If your TSH is between up to 5, then they will say there is no problem. But you may still have a fatigue, you may still have tiredness, you may still feel lethargic, you may still have cold sensitivity, your body temperature may still be lower than 97, but clinically you are not diagnosed with hypothyroidism. So, you are not treated with anything. The moment you cross TSH more than 5 or 6, then you will be identified as hypothyroid patient and you will be given a synthetic thyroid hormone in the form of what is called as levothyroxine, which is what is prescribed by doctors for hypothyroid patients. It comes in various dosages starting from 12.5 micrograms upwards. Now, just because your TSH is high doesn't mean you are not okay. Just because your TSH is normal doesn't mean you are okay. You have to look at a lot of other things, like I was explaining from the beginning. So, TSH is just a feedback loop. The way it happens is the hypothalamus and the pituitary is tracking the TSH in the blood, and as a feedback loop it activates or deactivates the thyroid from producing more hormone or less hormone. So, TSH is just a feedback mechanism. Now, why does the thyroid not produce enough thyroid hormone in case of hypothyroid patient? We are discussing hypothyroid more because 90% of the people are hypothyroid. It could be because the thyroid peroxidase is not functioning properly. It could be because there is deficiency of selenium or zinc in our diets. It could be something is blocking the thyroid peroxidase, which happens through something called thyroxide TPO antibodies. And it's found that about 16.7% of the population have TPO antibodies, which means the body's immune system is working to stop the thyroid peroxidase from allowing the thyroid to convert tyrosine into thyroid hormone. One of the main anti-nutrients we can say that block the thyroid peroxidase or cause antibodies to thyroid peroxidase is gluten. So, if we have patients with thyroid peroxidase, then definitely, and if they have antibodies which are high, then definitely these patients have to avoid eating gluten containing foods such as wheat, rye and barley and oats. Even though oats do not contain gluten directly, but in the agriculture they are produced in fields which are interchangeably using wheat and barley. Also they have neighboring fields which produce wheat and barley. So, oats get contaminated with gluten. So, these are the 3 or 4 foods that can cause TPO antibodies and therefore stop thyroid from producing the thyroid hormone in proper measure. That is the first issue. Now, as I said, the thyroid produces 90% of the hormone in the form of T4 and only 10% in the form of T3, some of it which it uses by itself. Now, the T4 has to go out into the body to get converted to active form of T3, for which you require a carrier. That carrier is called thyroglobulin. This is a protein produced by the liver to carry the transport the T4 to the rest of the body to convert to T3. There can also be antibodies against thyroglobulin. Now, there are 11% population in India who are having thyroglobulin antibodies, which means thyroid may be producing the hormone properly, but it is not getting transported to the rest of the tissue of the body. Therefore, there may be a deficiency of thyroid hormone in the blood and the tissues, and therefore, TSH may be high. So, what to do? Just because you have a TSH high does not mean you have to take synthetic hormone from outside. You have to correct the problem as to where the root cause of the problem lies. It could be TPO antibodies, it could be deficiency of selenium, it could be deficiency of zinc, it could be gluten sensitivity, and it could be TG antibodies. Conversion of 60% from T4 to T3 happens in the liver. So, if the T4 is all right, but T3 is not all right, then we need to look at liver function more than the thyroid function. Maybe fatty liver is there, maybe there are a lot of fatty deposits on the liver, maybe there is a diabetic condition existing, or there may be insulin resistance, or there may be PCOS. So, these are all things that will impact the liver function, and therefore, liver will impact the conversion of T4 to T3. The next important conversion happens in the gut. So, we discussed last week about autoimmune disorders, where we discussed the importance of leaky gut. If there is a leaky gut, if there is a dysbiosis, what causes dysbiosis? Again, antibiotics, or it could be painkillers, or it could be refined foods, or it could be NSAIDs. These are the things that will impact the gut, and therefore, when the gut is imbalanced, when the bacteria is imbalanced, again the conversion from T4 to T3 gets impacted. Let us say TPO is okay, let us say zinc is okay, let us say selenium is okay, let us say the TG antibodies are fine, let us say the liver is functioning fine, let us say the gut is functioning fine, but the receptors on the cells are covered by toxic elements because we have been consuming a lot of pesticide or fertilizer laden foods. Then the receptors won't absorb the T3. So, we have to look at detoxifying the cells and the body so that the T3 absorption happens properly. Let us say everything is fine. Now, we have stress. The first thing that stress does is to create adrenaline, cortisol, insulin, which are required to manage stress. Because for the human body, stress means only one thing, which is flight or fight. You may be stressed because of 1,000 things. For the body, it means you are in front of an animal, you have to fight that animal or run away from that animal, fight or flight. And then your adrenaline, your sugars have to be very, very high, your energy has to be very, very high in your limbs, your hands, your legs, not in the rest of the tissues, because that's where you need energy to fight or flight. So whenever you have stress, your receptors in these parts will get activated, and the adrenaline will create a reverse T3, RT3 hormone, which will block the absorption of T3 in the rest of the cells and allow only the hands and legs to get the T3, to get more energy and use it for flight or fight. Stress also affects the gut renewal and therefore gut balance. So almost 40% of your thyroid hormone activity is determined by your stress and gut conditions. 60% of your thyroid activities are determined by your liver, and today 90% people are suffering from what is called as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, because refined foods consumption, because a lot of wrong fats, eating wrong fats, having obesity, having diabetes, having so many other conditions which will impact conversion of T4 to T3. So when we look at thyroid disorders, we need to look at TPO, zinc, selenium, TG, iodine, tyrosine, liver function, gut function, adrenaline function, stress and toxicity in the cells, so that there are no ill impact on absorbing the thyroid hormone. Now, what are the things we need to do when we have a thyroid problem? The good news is that all of this is reversible with nutrition, and we can definitely eliminate all these problems with the right approach to nutrition. Before I go further, there is a question about cabbage being contraindicated for thyroid patients. Generally it is said that there are goitrogens in these things which may block thyroid function, but when you cook cabbage or cauliflower, they will not impact the thyroid. So you can eat cabbage and cauliflower by cooking them well. You should not eat them raw in the form of salads, right? So coming back to what is it that we need to do for having thyroid disorders. First of all, are we eating foods which are rich in iodine, foods which are rich in tyrosine, foods which are rich in selenium, foods which are rich in zinc? Are we avoiding gluten containing foods? Then check for T3, T4, TSH levels in our body on a regular basis. The ideal condition for the parameters is the range of T4 in the blood is supposed to be between 4 and 12. For T3 it is between 0.9 to 1.8. The higher the better for both. For TSH it is below 5, but better than 3, lower than 3 is better to avoid subclinical hypothyroidism. So look at these parameters on a regular basis. You still have issues, get your TPO antibodies checked, get your TG antibodies checked. If there are TPO antibodies, avoid gluten. If there are TG antibodies, work on the liver, because liver is producing the globulin. If there are gut issues like acidity, constipation, bloating, then work on the gut. Coming to what are the things we need to look at in terms of medicine. When you take levothyroxine, the synthetic hormone to replace insufficient production, so-called insufficient production of thyroid hormone because the TSH is high, then you will enter into a problem of low calcemia. Calcium goes down because of the way levothyroxine functions. It takes away calcium from your bones and removes calcium from the bone, and therefore invariably people who have thyroid problems and are on medication will have bone problems because their calcium is getting removed. So we need to have the calcium put back into the place. For that we need vitamin D to rise. For that we need vitamin K2. So we need to eat foods which are rich in vitamin D, vitamin K2, and take enough sunlight. The question is, can we replace nutrition with medication with nutrition? Absolutely. We at Arogya Ahar have treated more than 500 patients with hypothyroid and over a period of time systematically reduced their dosage of levothyroxine and brought them to non-usage of levothyroxine, and they have become completely clinically non-thyroid patients with maintained limit of T4, T3, TSH and all other parameters like no antibodies for TPO, TG, etc. Now, invariably when people come to us for, sometimes they come for arthritic conditions, sometimes they say I have knee pain. They may be as young as 18 years old, they may be as old as 65 years old, but therefore when we ask them, are you on thyroid medicine? When they say yes, then definitely we need to look at reducing the dosage or supplementing with calcium, vitamin D and with vitamin K2, because that's what will ensure calcium is in the bones. Now also when you see that people with thyroid problems and on medication are prescribed calcium supplementation, but most of the time the supplementation is given in the carbonate form. The carbonate form doesn't get absorbed, it only gets absorbed 40%. You need to take citrate or maleate form of calcium in terms of supplementation. Sometimes hypothyroid patients can become hyperthyroid patients when you are excessively taking the hypothyroid medication, because then your TSH goes down very, very low and you can convert to hyperthyroid patients. That condition where the body shifts from hypo to hyper or hyper to hypo is called Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition which is caused by the leaky gut. That's a separate topic of discussion. So Hashimoto's thyroiditis is a condition caused by autoimmunity which can cause hyper or hypo to exist in together. Coming to hyperthyroidism, you have excess iodine being consumed by the thyroid and excess tyrosine getting converted to thyroid hormone. So you need to block the iodine. So reduce the consumption of iodine foods, reduce the iodine activity. So in terms of medicine, methimazole is what is given for blocking the action of thyroid to convert iodine and tyrosine to thyroid hormone. This is about hyper and hypo. Goiter is a condition where there is insufficiency of iodine. So you have a swelling kind of a thing in the neck region, which is where insufficiency of iodine. In fact, if you remember, we got iodized salt introduced because after the freedom struggle, when we moved from eating rock salt, which was our natural food, to sea salt or commercially produced salt which did not have iodine, the population developed goiter. That's when the government mandated to make iodized salt, because there was insufficiency of iodine in our salt, which was coming from industrial production. Our natural rock salts and sea salts do have the iodine. The percentage of patients put on weight in hypo, almost 90% and above patients in hypo will have obesity. Very few people will be having lean hypothyroidism, very, very few, less than 10%. Most hypothyroid patients will have obesity, will have knee problems if they are on medication, will have comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, hypercholesterolemia, etc. Now, this is what I was talking about when I said thyroid is not a condition which is just to look at TSH and medicate. It's a very complex mechanism involving all aspects. The last point I want to say about thyroid is good evening Rita, Dr. Rita. When the whole system is working fine, yet the receptors are not okay for absorbing the T3, then the problem could be adrenaline which is blocking in the form of RT3, or it could be you are consuming lot of toxic foods which are laden with pesticides or fertilizers. So, moving to organic foods in such a scenario is the right thing when everything else is exhausted. If all things taken care of, you still have deficiency of T3, then it is good to move to organic food. It is better to check free T3 and free T4 rather than total T3 and total T4 or just TSH. So, look at all these parameters on a regular basis. Any questions, please? So, let me end by saying what are the foods that are good for managing your hypothyroid condition. In terms of home remedies, like I said, stop gluten if your TPO antibodies are there. Take selenium rich foods and zinc rich foods. Take magnesium rich foods. Vitamin B rich foods, B12. It's a good question from Dr. Aditi about what if the thyroid gland is removed. Yes. So, for those patients, they will have to take external support in the form of levothyroxine, but how much to take, how to maintain the balance, that has to be looked at. But yes, they have to take like for type 1 diabetes, insulin has to be given from outside. For people who have been removed with the thyroid gland, yes, they have to be given external thyroid hormone, no doubt about that. Swollen neck is an indicator of thyroid, maybe, may not be, but it's good to check the levels of T3, T4, TSH or do a scan and find out. Ideal level of TSH is in the range of below 3, up to 5 is fine. So, consuming good omega 3 fats, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B complex, vitamin D from sunlight, selenium, zinc, magnesium, all these are important nutrients for the thyroid gland. So, next time you get a thyroid issue or a thyroid patient, look at all the things that I spoke about, do not just look at TSH alone, that is insufficient. If there are no more questions, best fruits, all fruits can be eaten, no problem, fruits with any fruit goes well with thyroid, no issues. Vitamin D supplements are required. If your vitamin Ds are low, the best supplementation would be take sunlight 5 to 10 minutes every day between 10 am to 2 pm just to warm your skin, bare skin exposure, no lotion, no moisture, no oil, nothing, bare skin exposure. In case of a deficiency of selenium, the best nutrient supplement is Brazil nut. At least one Brazil nut per day will be good for people who are hypothyroid. Thank you, Rajgopal ji. Thank you, Ikra. Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, Jaya. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. We can reach out more to us at ayurved.com or at arogyahar.com for any support required from our side for needing any help in regard to managing thyroid or any other lifestyle disorders. Thank you so much. I end the session here. Good day. Have a nice time. Thank you very much.